can you see this person's perspective,
Right.
but can you see beyond this barrier that is in front of you right now? And we do get to that place of gratitude and actually appreciation. Now, it takes us refusing to stay in a victim mindset in order to do that.
We ain't no victims. We crazy hair people today. It's like it's look at your hair. My gosh, you got some body going on. I can't hear you. You is muted. There we go. No, now you're muted again. Now you're good.
It's just my hair taking over.
Your hair is just
It's a lot. I'm not complaining about it, but
No?
it is a lot.
Mine was a lot today too. I was like crazy. I was like, I got up. I've been mashing it down because I had like the first one because I said I woke up and it's like, wow, it's who knows? I said it must be a lot of humidity in the air today.
I don't know, but I mean, I'm not complaining. In the 80s, I wanted my hair straight as a pin. In the 90s, I wanted it big, and now I just want it to just make up its mind.
It's like y'all can be whatever you want to be, just on our head.
Right.
Well, that kind of opens up our little can of worms today. We're going to talk about celebrating change, giving, rejuvenate, organize, wealth and wisdom, transition, health and happiness, just change. And
absolutely,
because we always come with the idea of, I hate change. Okay, I come from that. You don't.
No,
You good with change. I'm not. No, I don't like to change. I mean, I nest in a hotel room. I get in a hotel room, and if they call and say, "Oh my goodness, you're going to have to move to another room. We've got another room for you." I go, I don't want to move, and then but it's the penthouse. It's got all the stuff, and yeah, but I have to move.
Yeah,
And
me, girl. If I'm getting out of the shower, I'm like, let me just grab my towel. I'm moving on up to that penthouse with y'all. Let's do it. Let's just do it.
Well, my point being is that sometimes the change that happens is not a hassle. It's not bad. Sometimes the change is actually really good. Moving on up to the penthouse.
Yep.
And that's what life is about. And what gave me this idea? Can we start with the pictures from your new offices? Now, a lot of
we're still in transition, so I will say that there's still some to-dos to be done, but it's on its way.
Well, so for everybody that's been there in some of our workshops that we've done, this is what it looks like now. It's just growing and moving and grooving. I love this little area.
I know. Isn't it the best?
Yes.
I love it. I love
all these different angles. And y'all know Teri is a photographer. And so look at that. Doesn't that just invite you in? I love the colors, everything. I just love it. And you have some change going on. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and welcome everybody that's been joining us. Perry is with us. Hi, Perry.
Hey, Perry.
And Elizabeth, I frequently wake up with helmet head hair. I know. It's like, that's me. Candy, hey girls. All right, let's see. Then Elizabeth kicks things up. Oh, how change used to terrify me, literally terrify me. And he says, looking stylish, love it. I like the new office too. I said, look like a magazine. You sent them to me and I'm going, it really does look like a magazine.
So I love it. It just has, I've always, of course I'm biased. So I've always thought my office has got a really nice, nurturing feel to it. But because of the change that's going on, there's new coats of paint and new furniture coming in and lots of zhuzhing up. And I'm super excited about it, not just for me, but for anyone who comes in that place and just gets to sit in that space.
And I know Elizabeth's been there. It's going to look amazing when it's all done. So
it is. And I'm just going to throw a shout out. Elizabeth's coming to help me paint this weekend. So
that's awesome. Yeah, that is awesome. Well, we're going to kick things off about why change is so uncomfortable. The C word, the uncomfortable parts of change. And I always say, sometimes we're holding on to something so much that we can't embrace change. Our hands are full. I
tell folks often that, it's sort of like when we've lived in this mindset, in this energy, in a paradigm where we are completely comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you look at change like the chiropractor of the world, and you go in and you're so familiar walking like this, and then you go and you get that chiropractic adjustment, and finally you're like this, but it's uncomfortable at first because we've gotten so used to walking sideways that that realignment is like, ooh, I'm a little scared of this. I don't know about this. But once we settle into it, and the brain has an opportunity to go, okay, I'm kind of liking this. That just affords us more expansion mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
And we oftentimes we talk about people, they hold on to trauma of the past, so they can't move forward. The bad things, and we always talk about holding on to the bad stuff. But let's be real. It's not just holding on to the bad stuff. It's holding on to even the good stuff. Have you ever seen the person who has ridden on the coattails of a past glory? The football player who is no longer a football player. He's a 55-year-old man who keeps talking about that winning touchdown in high school. And he can't move past because of that. And when his body starts breaking down, as we all do somewhat as we start aging, it's hard to embrace that change because still hanging on to something that happened, hanging on to a decade that was really good in our life. So therefore, nothing that comes after that will ever be good.
Right.
And I find it a lot of times women who cannot look in the mirror, the woman who can't look in a mirror anymore because she no longer recognizes the picture that is what she looks back at her hair in the 80s. We were just talking about our hair, back in the 80s and 90s and going, I liked that era, and not being able to look at our current selves and go, wow, I've been through some stuff. This is so awesome to be here.
Yeah, and sometimes it's kind of hard to wrap the reins around how awesome it is to be here, because I'll be honest, and anybody that has worked with me or knows me knows that sometimes the truth just kind of runs out of my mouth, and I'm going, did I just say that? But yes, I look back at pictures of me in college and I think, man, I wish I was as fat today as I thought I was then, and I say that not in a derogatory way, but in a way of, we have a way of reflecting back and thinking that things just aren't good where we are right now. And not everybody, we oftentimes can get in pockets where we're really happy and content where we are now. But by and large, there's a lot of, if only, if only, if only. And we miss out on some pretty amazing gifts that are unfolding in real time when we're stuck in the future because of trauma or pain or anger. We're stuck in the past because of trauma, pain, or anger. We're stuck in the past because of, scored baskets or footballs or, all of that, or those relationships. Or we get so busy in the future. If only, if only, if only. That we miss out on this entire present moment where things could be better, could be worse, but just having an acceptance and an acknowledgement for how we are as we age. Because the society, surely, did I just say society? Society, society surely does not make it. While there are some campaigns going on, society doesn't really open up arms for men and or women aging, because we're, it's just seen as like, oh yeah, okay, you become an elder. I say sage, but whatever.
I like sage too. I like the wise woman of the tribe. I'll jump right into that, but it's a weird thing to be unseen. That's a weird thing. And this brings us up to a workshop that you are planning and that you're working on.
I am. It's called Sage Sisters. This particular workshop is for women, and it is geared around how we embrace ourselves, our heart space, mind space, body space, spiritual space as we age. Because in a society that is quick to say, here's 1,000 products to get rid of all the things that are wrong with you. What about if you embrace the things that are you? I'm not saying, hey, if Botox and, removing stuff is your thing, knock yourself out. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But if you genuinely you don't love or like yourself because of the way your body is or your mind is, then you are the only person that can accept and acknowledge that. And there's stuff that happens as we age that, we shun away from, men and women both. There's things that happen as we age that, we don't want to talk about that, or, oh, I can't tell anybody this, or I'm not going to take this trip because I might have this problem, or, I don't look as good as I did 20 years ago. Well, shit, a banana doesn't look as good as it did a week ago. So, I mean, there's a natural process,
but it makes better banana bread. Come on.
Right. And that's the same thing with us. Just because we might not look like we, in size, in facial structure, in whatever, that we might not look the way that we looked, 20 years ago, doesn't mean that we're not wiser, that we don't have exponential amounts of gifts to give and wisdom to share and love to share and to receive. But if we're not willing to crack that open, then it just stays right outside the window. And we long for it, but we never crack the window to let it in.
Yeah. I'm learning to laugh at some of the changes, and literally
don't laugh too hard because you'll piss yourself sometimes. So,
well, you know what? Even
there's that.
I've started kind of laughing at some of the things, and there's a certain amount of freedom that comes along. I said, there's nothing like the freedom of Velcro shoes and elastic pants, but it truly is. There's a freedom in not holding on so much to that vision that I had of my 20-year-old self and trying to look like my 20-year-old self, or trying to sound like or do like my 20-year-old self.
Right.
Oh, I love it. Candy says Pilates for the pelvic floor, ladies. Yes, you are exactly right, Candy. I think that's important. Elizabeth says, oh, I love my Botox, but I wouldn't be devastated if it disappeared tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's it. It's about being able to look at ourselves, like we look at our bodies and we talk about, I joked with Candy one day about, and I mean it seriously, that, I have cellulite on my ass that I could plant tomatoes in. And like, I don't say that in a way that's degrading to myself. I say it in a way of, it's not really a huge priority for me to change it. And I love myself. So I'm going to focus on the trees that are budding and the relationships that are in my life and those things. And I'm still going to be kind and good to myself, but I'm not going to beat myself up because elasticity in my body has said, hey, at 58, girl, I'm fixing to have to take a break. Okay. I get that, kindness goes a long way, especially when we are bestowing it on ourselves.
Let's see. Corinne I recently turned 70. Okay. First of all, Corinne, not believing that for a second, but so excited because you're giving me some hope, girl. My experience, folks, are helpful to me when I'm out and about as I toddle along. She says that. She's not a toddler. She's not a toddler. And in reference to, she says, I've also learned how to pop my knees in the morning when I get out of bed. Then I'm good to go. What? I'm today years old, even hearing this. Elizabeth referring back to Pilates for pelvic floor. Does that help? And Candy replies, a way that's endearing and always makes me smile. I guess that was the answer to that question. I hope that is. And Corinne says, oh, that was the knee thing. I put the wrong answer. I think it gets the air out and doesn't hurt. So we're talking about popping the knees. So
it actually releases what's called the lactic acids in your joints. And so that's just my massage therapy wisdom fountain spewing out there. But yeah, it just pops that. And so it feels better. You kind of look like you're doing like an Elvis or some kind of move when you're standing there doing it. Because I'll pop my knees, and sometimes people look like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "It didn't hurt. I mean, it just it feels better. Your knee
Wow.
actually moves then."
Never have I ever heard of popping the knees. Okay, it's crazy. Corinne says, yes, I am toddling around. I'm 2 canes to get around. I'm going to tell you now, Margie Singleton. Margie, if you are watching this or you check in, Margie went from canes to these ski poles
Mm-hmm.
because they make her feel younger and athletic. And I thought, what an awesome thing. She said, but it also helps with the balance too,
Absolutely.
and she's 87.
And
And
they're
so,
taller.
yeah, and they're taller.
Yeah.
And so it's helpful to get your balance is a big thing, and falls are the things that you want to avoid at all cost, no matter what age you are.
Right.
And Teri and I don't get us started talking about the way we fall.
I am a slow motion faller. Like you
Mhm.
got time to have a cup of coffee while I fall, because I fall and I'm laughing inside. I'm laughing. I laugh at myself when I fall all the time. I mean, not that I fall all the time, but I can just trip walking on straight floor, but it tickles me. So
That's it. Learning to laugh at some of the changes is a great way to kind of look at it. Candy Seaton joins us. Candy just had a birthday. Happy
yes, she
birthday.
did. Happy birthday, Candy.
And honest to goodness, shared the coolest way of celebrating Valentine's Day. She if you check her out her page, because she celebrated Valentine's by being good to herself from the time she got up with a chocolate bomb in her coffee to visiting a friend and taking them a Valentine. And literally just her whole day was about enjoying herself and loving herself. And I thought that was so great. So check out Candy Seaton's page and see what she did. Joyce just joins us. Sorry I'm late. Good to see y'all beautiful girls.
Welcome, Joyce. Thank you. It's good to see you too.
We're talking about change, and I saw a really great post by a woman whose husband left her as she got older. And she said, what I did with that, instead of being bitter, I started every day. She said, I re enrolled in classes and I got my degree. Then I got another degree. And now I have a job based on my degree, my upper degrees that I got. She says, I'm 60 years old. I love my children and my grandchildren. And I'm really happy with what I've done with my life. If she had spent her time, and maybe she did, but she didn't seem like the person who's going to spend her time perusing social media to see what her old husband did.
Yeah. I mean, everybody, again, that's the getting stuck in the past, or,
Mhm.
living in the future, living in the past instead of being in the space that you're in. And it's not so much around, I tell people all the time, it's not so much around acceptance, because the brain can often hear the word acceptance and it's like, well, I don't agree with this, but I guess I have to accept this.
Mhm.
But just acknowledging that while you might not, you might, when we get back to like the body stuff, you might not like the way your body looks, but your body's working for you.
Mhm.
You might not like the way your hips look or your feet look or your lips look or your eyebrows look, but your eyes are working, your limbs are working. It's a different perspective and a different gratitude. And I understand there's a plethora of all sorts of, mind traps that go on with that, but there's a freedom that comes from loving yourself. And I think as women, I think we hit the 50-year mark, the 52, and definitely by the time you're over 55, there's a freedom that comes with that if you allow yourself to embrace it, it's really magical, because you are acknowledging and loving of yourself,
Mhm.
and it changes the way you don't become that old elderly lady, you become that sage woman. And there is some good juju around that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Now here's interesting. Candy shares, I went from a cane to new knees. So thankful for knee replacements.
Mm-hmm.
And Corinne says, that scares the heck out of me. That's okay. It's okay to be afraid of something. It's okay
Mm-hmm.
to be afraid of something. And here's something else as we look at change. I think it's important to look at the thought of just because you are afraid of something doesn't mean you're supposed to do it. For instance, if you are afraid of jumping out of an airplane and someone says, "Oh, you're just chicken. Come on and no, don't let anyone force you into something that truly gives you a fear. Not all fear is bad. Some fear is good, and there's some things I'm not going to do.
Absolutely.
I'm not jumping out of an airplane. And I have dear friends who I love with all my heart that have tried to talk me into it. I'm going, you can talk to your blue in the face. Perfectly good airplanes. I barely get in the airplane to go up, much less jump out of it to come down. I'm not going to do that. But that's okay. I have my own things and my own fears that I have faced. So, and I want to talk to some people about some of the things that you can't embrace change because you're afraid of it. And there's some bad fear that's out there that we can get rid of. We talked about that last week with Bill Sinke, and talked about hypnotherapy to get us through some bad fear, like the woman who couldn't be near a dog because of something that happened as a child, and she couldn't even go into houses because people that had a sweet old dog or whatever, any kind of dog would literally give her a panic attack. And she did a session, and the subconscious, they talked to that little subconscious in there, the little one that got hurt, the little and moved past that fear. And it was just a miracle because it was part of her life that you don't realize, not going into someone's home, not going to a party, not walking on a sidewalk, not getting out of your car because there might be a dog. And I thought that was so interesting how just a little bit of work in that department got rid of that fear.
Absolutely. It just shifts the energy around it, shifts the perspective around it. I don't know that there's any, like some people will say, well, there's good fear and there's bad fear. I think fear is fear, and it depends on what we attach to it. Because some people, to say it's a bad fear around dogs, well, if you've been mauled by a dog, it's probably not a bad fear. I mean, it's a justified fear.
Yeah. And which she had when she was a kid. I mean, that's what happened to her.
Yeah. So, and I think that's one way in the compartment of shaming ourselves. We can get in there when we start labeling things as good and bad and the right and the wrongs. We can very easily, our brain can slip into that. Well, let's just pull out the shame flag now and review that. And now jump in that pile of shame and wiggle around in it. And it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Thank you, but no, thank you.
You taught me a word. And I want everybody to write this word down and put it on a Post-it note and put it like everywhere in your house. Because every time you have a bad thought, and I've said, the bad thoughts, the thoughts that are detrimental and they change your day, reframe. That's I learned reframe from you. And you take that and you look at it in a different way. Perspective is another word to say reframe. But you taught me that, and I'm telling you, that has changed my life more ways than Sunday. And I didn't know that was possible.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. If we just, it's just like if you're standing somewhere looking at something, and then you reframe, meaning step to the side or, look around a different way or step back a little. And then you look at it again, you have reframed that image. You've reframed that in your mind, in your mind's eye. And you've also given yourself a different perspective of it. And those are things that reframing things out is a way of not denying how things happened in a particular moment or time, but it's just choosing the power that we allow it to have over us in today's time.
Well, as Candy says, I look at big changes as a new adventure. That's an example of reframing. She also says some small changes and small fears are harder for me than big changes. Let's unpack that. What's around that? A little change might be harder than a big, like moving to another city seems like a big change, but sometimes that's easier than moving across town.
Well, like I would say moving to a big city versus what somebody might consider a small change, setting boundaries, right?
Okay.
Ending a relationship seems like a big change. Setting a boundary seems like a small change, but they're actually both very important. But
Mhm.
there comes more, and I don't know if this is what Candy's referring to. I'm just throwing this out as a hypothetical, but there's more consistency required in a smaller change
Mhm.
because we're accountable at that point for seeing it through,
Mhm.
for consistency, for sticking with it. And it can be, that's applicable to so many different kinds of changes, in
Right.
life. But we have to become reliant on ourselves when we get into these, changes, big or small,
Mhm. This is good, Corinne. When the what ifs hit or feeling anxious, I count my blessings and see all that he has brought me through. It's a gratitude list is always that's a way out of my pity pot every time. It always helps. Um, but on days when I can't find my gratitude list, I give myself a little grace because
100%.
sometimes I need a little moment. And when I can't find my gratitude list, usually it's because I haven't given myself time to grieve
Hmm.
or time to feel all my feels.
Right.
And I don't have to waller in them. I don't have to get down in them. Then chocolate.
Right, right. Well, and here's the thing, you don't have to, a little gratitude, a little grace goes a long way for ourselves. And it's okay not to be okay sometimes. We live
Mhm.
in a society and a culture where we're constantly trying to, um, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine. And sometimes my dogs are fixing to go crazy, I think, because the Amazon person is at my front door. So just beware. Um, Jack, you are such a good boy. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Hey, that's a good boy. Sorry, guys.
That's
Um,
okay.
he usually he loses his mind, but apparently he thought she was pretty or something. I don't know, but she wasn't here to murder me, so that's good.
Yeah.
Um,
He must have saw it was the Chewy box.
yeah, it's the
Hey,
peanut butter
I
box.
I like her. I like her. She got the Chewy box. It's got the blue on the side.
Right. But getting into that space of just being okay sometimes with not being okay, and knowing that it's only temporary. Because
Mhm.
I tell folks emotions have about a 90-second lifespan to them. So much like the wasp that flies in front of you and it's unpleasant and it's triggering or activating for you. Some people will just see it go and they're like, whatever. And other people will see it and they're like, it's got to get away from me. And they start swatting. And what happens is usually you piss it off and it stays around a little longer than you want it to. And then we've got a problem because
Yep.
now we're running from it and it's chasing us. And that's kind of how our emotions do. If an emotion comes up and we're being okay with not being okay, or feeling something's heavy, knowing that what, it's okay in this moment for this to be heavy. This is not permanent. And if you don't feed it, then there's a really high
Mm.
probability that it will not stay around and sting you later. And
Wow.
so being mindful of that.
I think this is really good too. Corinne says there are times when the tears overwhelm, but like you said, it doesn't last. Candy, loving the wasp analogy.
Well, thank you, Candy. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
powerful.
It is. It really, really is. When I'm in the midst of a bad moment, I also ask myself, Elizabeth says, how I would react to a friend having the same moment. Oh, that's good. That's good. And I
Mm-hmm.
remind myself to treat myself the same way I treat them. I can be so much nicer to friends than to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I'll take that one step further. When you're in that moment where you're being short, curt, ugly to yourself, what if you reach inside and you pull that little out of you and you visualize setting them beside you on the couch or on the chair and giving them that same love and support and kindness? Because when we feel ourselves being reactionary to something, it's not because we're trying to be a problem, it's because we're trying to protect ourselves. And if we
Mhm.
shame ourselves for protecting ourselves, even if our mode of, um, protecting ourselves might not be the healthiest. We might show up in
Right.
some unhealthy ways. If that's the only way we've ever been modeled, then perhaps not shunning or shaming yourself, but
Mhm.
being accepting in the fact of, okay, this is happening. I feel this way. It's okay not to be okay right now in this moment. This is going to
Mhm.
pass. You
Yep.
know.
Well, shout out to Johnny Vinoker who joins us today. JV,
Hey,
it's so good
Johnny.
to have you. I think sometimes, and I'm just going to speak personally, sometimes I hold on to the past because I want justice to be served.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I hold on to it longer and I keep referring back to it. But one day, karma's going to get them. One day, this is going to happen. And one day, and I keep waiting for justice to happen. Meanwhile, I've wasted a lot of time waiting for justice to happen because
Mm-hmm.
justice may not ever happen. How much
Well,
are you willing to give up of your life to stay mired and stuck waiting for the wheels of justice?
right. Had this conversation with someone not long ago about, that need for justice. And it's like, well, but sometimes people just can't, sometimes the people that you're talking to sway the view of something or another person, they can't see it because they're not looking through a particular lens. They're looking through the idolization lens. So you're not going to change their mind by trash talking or smear campaigning someone else. And
Mhm.
and and what it does is it continues to amp us up. And so that justice oftentimes comes from, again, our littles, where maybe
Mhm.
there was a time where you didn't have a voice or you couldn't advocate for yourself, or you were put in situations where you weren't safe. And so as an adult, there is a need for things to be righted, the wrongs to be righted. But
Yeah.
what we don't often recognize is that we've got a whole slew of littles inside us that are taking one person or one experience and trying to right and apply every wrong that was ever there to this one
Yes.
thing,
Yes.
and make it
Uh-huh.
all right. And it's like, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, and then there's also that time when we, have someone, I always call it the scapegoat, the person that actually is there for us,
Hmm.
they end up with all that.
Right. The person that's helping or supporting or nurturing, or the friend, whatever, um, they end up, or maybe it's a frenemy, I don't know, but they end up as someone who ends up taking the whole bucket.
Yeah.
And that's a disproportionate, I mean, it doesn't all go in one bucket. And that's
Yeah,
actually not that friend's responsibility so much as it is our personal responsibility to figure that out.
that's right. I let go of the past, Candy says, because it doesn't serve me where I am today. You can think of it now and then, but letting it go has served me well. You are a poster child girl for moving past and taking that and moving it into a positive way. I've watched Candy and we've had some long conversations about stuff, and she really has practiced what we all preach, and it's amazing to watch it. It's like, oh, this might work. Joy says, I just told my husband this morning to free yourself, I think you have to let it go.
Hmm.
Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
And that again depends on somebody's take, because some people feel a need to get even. But here's the thing, I always tell people, rein it in and look at what you're doing to yourself in this process.
Hmm.
And we're not being self-kind if we are being, if we're in that space where we can't love ourselves. Like, what do we need, right? What do we
Hmm.
need? Checking in with yourself. Now the first response might be, I need to throat punch this person, but that's not the real response.
Occurrence is, oh, but just once. I wish I could.
you know that's, I mean, it's a choice, right? Because we all have free will, so we can totally do that. But then we
Mhm.
have no right to complain about the consequence that comes when we do that, right?
I always say free will is great till someone else uses theirs.
Right.
Yeah. Perry says, I often write of the past where our first memory is formed. Our past makes us who we are today and where God has placed us. I love that, Perry.
Hmm.
Um, And last comment, because we got to get out of here. That person is still controlling, Joyce says. Still controlling as you let the stuff eat at you.
100%. 100%. There's I don't know if it's a Buddha quote that's basically like, holding on to the coal and expecting it to burn the other person's hand. I mean, that's kind of how it is. And
drinking the poison, hoping the other guy's going to die.
Yeah. And for the most part, people have already moved on with their lives. And if they're a miserable human being in that moment, or if it's a skewed way that we've seen something in that moment, then we hang on to it. And so they're not the one betraying us. We're betraying us. They're not the one hurting us. We're hurting us. It's not them, it's us. But it's a whole lot easier to point in another direction and say, yeah, but they did this to me. That might have happened to you, but you get to reframe it to work or to benefit for you.
So our reframe is a way to look at it, how to embrace change. I always say you can't move forward while looking back without hitting something head on. And it literally is that bonk. If you walk along, you see people with their cell phones, or they look backwards and they run into something, or they walk out into traffic or whatever. That's the metaphor for when we try to move on, but we keep looking back. And so I want to encourage you guys to find your place, to take today for what it is. And, look at it and notice it and see what is good about today. And the changes that start to happen can be really, really good. If they're trying to move you up into the penthouse, don't say no because you have to get on an elevator. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you can do in your life to just start taking every single new gift or I love it. Little changes as adventures.
It's opportunities. It's opportunity for growth. And also, I will say this, sometimes looking at the whole day can be overwhelming for folks. So take it moment at a time, and maybe have a visualization of a bucket, and the buckets with the good, the great things that are happening, the positive things that are happening, the healthy things that are happening, and just sort of make that mental deposit of that. And then what you will find at the end of the day, just do a brief journal entry of like how the day overall summed up. And if you find that you reflect on all the positives that have happened, or the healthies that have happened, you might have a couple of things that are like, rah, 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 but they will offset for the most part. You're not trying to do brain trickery here. You're just saying, where one thing can happen and we can go, oh, I've had a flat tire today. This has ruined my day. But then you can also say, oh, wow, this happened and this happened and this happened and this was great and this was really positive and this was super healthy. Then when you look at it that way, it's like, oh yeah, it actually, the scales tipped in favor of a great day, a good day, a peaceful day, a calm day, an okay day.
Oh, I love this. I said it was my last one, but Elizabeth, who always has such wisdom, that's exactly what I tell friends who are looking for help getting sober. Take it 1 minute at a time if you need to. Don't overwhelm yourself with a whole day, a whole week, a whole lifetime.
Absolutely.
That's a great way. Well, you guys, thank you for joining us today. I'm Devon, and you can reach me if you have any kind of questions, or you want to be part of the event coming up with Teri. You can email her, but you can email me with future topics at devonoday@gmail.com.
Yes, and you guys can find me at teripugh.com, or leave a message below and we'll get back with you there. And also, Devon and I are going to be having an open house pretty soon, because I have somebody coming into the new office space and sharing some space with me. And so stay tuned as the progress unfolds there. And then we'll be announcing when we're going to do an open house. And if you're local, we'd love for you to come by. And if you're not local, we'll send pictures and post pictures. And the next time you are in town, you can come by. So, and I guess on that note, I will just say that, as always, we truly do appreciate you choosing to spend your time and your energy with us and sharing with us. And we value each and every one of you. And until we see you next week, increase the peace and create yourself a great day. See ya.